Hello boys and girls, this is Monday night's homework. This is the third video in our flipped unit, and today we're going to go through a plot chart of the most dangerous game. How we're going to do this lesson today, I'm just going to take you through a slideshow that I've created as far as discussing the plot elements, and we'll go through and view the slideshow together. But basically what I want to point out first of all, our plot chart that we're going to use here in high school will actually have a couple terms maybe you're not familiar with. You should know what the rising action is, which is basically events that continually build up to our climax. The falling action are a number of events that go on to the end, which is, you might be familiar with the term resolution, but denouement might be new for you. Denouement is a French term that basically is a summary that sums up the story, where, as you can see along the denouement, there's no more real action. It's very flat. The line on this plot chart is flat. It doesn't rise or fall. Same with the exposition. Exposition is a term for a number of events that happens that basically is giving us the setting of the story, the characters that will be involved in our story, and just kind of it's anything before the actual action starts, and that's a term that we're going to talk about in a second. So these four events in our plot chart, the exposition, rising action, falling action, and denouement, will have a number of events that happen throughout the story in here. Just thinking specifically of the most dangerous game, I like using the plot chart for this term because our author really set up the story perfectly symmetrical, giving us the characters, Rainsford and Whitney, and the setting of the story being on an island in the tropics, all in the exposition where there's really no action involved yet until something happens. So the other three terms I want to take a look at on our plot chart, which I'm going to advance now, is first the inciting incident, the climax, and then the resolution. These are three events that happen throughout the story that basically are well-defined, clear-cut, single events. That means there's only one point in the story that's a climax. And we always look for the most exciting point in the story, but we need to get away from that and think about the turning point for the main character. The turning point for the main character is where the rising action ends and we start on our falling action. Inciting incident down here is the first actual incident in the story that starts our action. It's the catalyst, if you will, for the protagonist to start the action in the story. So I want you to be thinking about what was that in our story after we learn about Rainsford, after we discuss the setting and the fact that they're hunters. What's the first incident that actually starts our rising action? If you can think about that, that'd be great. The climax, a turning point, we actually discussed while we were reading. I hope you know that. We're going to see that on our next slide. And finally, the resolution is the ending of our action. There's no action after the resolution. Now, the reason why I really want to talk about the most dangerous game is because, well, check out this next slideshow. First of all, there is a clear-cut, definite climax to our story, and that is Zaroff decides to hunt Rainsford. Throughout all of the rising action here, we have Zaroff trying to convince Rainsford that he's created a great new game and that it'll be exciting for him to go hunting again, and that Rainsford should understand that Zaroff is brilliant and he's created something new and wonderful. Then, as soon as he decides Rainsford isn't going to hunt with him, he hunts him instead. And all of the action that's going on in the forest and him trying to get away from Zaroff and him hunting him, going through the three traps that Rainsford sets up, are all part of falling action. Then there's a specific event that ends the action before our denouement. Now, let's take a look at the first initial incident. What do you think it is? Think to yourself for a second, what's the action? How does the action start in the story? And that is that Rainsford falls off of the ship into the ocean. He's on that cruise ship, and as soon as he falls in, boom, our action has started. The water is blood warm. We can see that it's a life and death situation for him. He's in the middle of this Caribbean Sea, and he has to get to land somehow. The ship is going to move. There's nobody that noticed that he fell off, and he needs to make it to shore. So all of a sudden, we're thrown right into the action. All the action, learning about the island, finding out about Zaroff, leads us to the climax, the turning point. But then, as I said, there is a resolution. There's a specific event that ends our action. And the reason why I love doing the plot chart with the most dangerous game is because it's perfect. it mirrors um, the the inciting incident mirrors the resolution perfectly. I want you to think about this. Rainsford falls off of a boat into the ocean. That starts our action. What ends our action? After Rainsford's hunting him, he sets traps and everything else. Rainsford does what? How does he end the game? What happens to him? Do you know? Because it's beautifully mirrored. Check it out. Rainsford jumps off the cliff into the ocean, right? That's how he ends the game. Zaroff thinks he might have killed himself. Either way, he cheated, and Zaroff goes back to have dinner. But what I want to point out is there's beautiful symmetry here by our author, Richard Connell. He has taken Rainsford falls off of the ship into the ocean in the beginning, and him jumping off the cliff into the ocean is the end. And what's very important about the denouement here at the end, and you know, I think everybody, when we're reading the end of this story, we want to know, why didn't he tell us about the fight between Zaroff and Rainsford? What about the last incident, you know, where he goes, on guard, Rainsford, I'm still a beast at bay. Why doesn't he get into that? It's easy. The resolution has happened. The author cannot give us any more action, any more rising action. And the beauty of it is that you know, he goes back and has dinner. He opens up a bottle of Veuve Clicquot, which is a great wine, and he starts humming some tunes. He talks to a couple of his dogs. He worries that he has to replace Ivan, and then he goes up to his bedroom, and they go, well, one of us will end up a repose for the hounds, I think is the terms he says. One of us will end up being food for the dogs, and the other one will sleep in this splendid bed. And remember, we don't even know who wins the game until the second last word of the story. And that is when he goes, he decided he never slept in a better bed. Rainsford decided, right? Rainsford we don't even know who the winner is until the end. But there's no real action. The author still keeps that suspense going. And what I just want to point out is, again, we have a beautiful plot chart for this story. Perfectly symmetrical. I mean, I guess the climax is just a little bit off-center. It takes us a little bit more than half the story to get to the climax. But most stories, this is a very skewed, you know, plot chart where basically we have rising action. The climax is right near the end. We fall, and then we end the story. Here, much more like Shakespeare, puts the climax in the center of the story, and I think that's just great. So the keys that I want you to remember, I'm going to start this PowerPoint over one last time for you. Keys I want you to remember because you'll need these tomorrow in class for Tuesday's class. The plot terms. We have exposition, which are all the events leading up to the initial incident. Rising action, that leads us up to climax. What's our climax? Zaroff decides to hunt Rainsford. Good. We have falling action happening in here. That's all the traps and the hunting, which you will map out on Wednesday in class. And then we have a denouement, which is the denouement is the ending. That's no action at all. And don't forget our other elements in the plot chart here. These 7 are inciting incident and climax and resolution. So these are the 7 elements of the plot chart you'll need to know for all of our short stories, and we'll actually talk about the stories that we've done so far, like the Odyssey. But even better is the rest of the short stories coming up. And the reason why I love looking at this plot chart with The Most Dangerous Game, simply because the climax is so well defined. We know that when Zaroff chooses to hunt Rainsford, that's the turning point for Rainsford. You were the hunter, now you're a huntee, right? So that's a major turning point for and it's well defined. And the inciting incident and the resolution are very clear and well defined as well. So looking at this plot chart here, it's very easy to see all of those elements and all those terms. Please make sure you know them. They will be on the final test as well. Okay? Know these 7 terms, and we'll be using them tomorrow in class. That's it, boys and girls. Look at that. 9 minutes, and we are done with our homework. Enjoy. We'll see you in class tomorrow.